Hey, it's Khalil with the Cashflow Contractor. Thanks for listening and tuning in. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, now's a great time to do it. If you are interested in building your construction business to be profitable and to run without you so you can have less stress, more time, and more money, we want to send you more content that can help you do that. I talk to contractors all the time who listen while they're driving from job site to job site, while they're taking care of stuff in the office or at home. And it's a great podcast for them because it gives them actual ideas and strategies they can use inside their business in a conversational format with two goobers like me and Martin. So if you're interested in that, you want more strategies to help you grow and improve your business, subscribe now. Now, let's get into the show.
Over 90% of contractors look to hire over the next year. But wouldn't it be great if you weren't having to backfill?
Why do people actually need to just keep the people they already have rather than dealing with turnover and getting the next person?
There's so many costs associated with replacing individuals. There's direct costs, hard costs that go into losing someone, that work not being productive for a certain amount of time, and all the time that it takes. And then there's those indirect costs. And that can really be hard to overcome because they're not always measurable.
Put money towards celebrating your employees, then crap, we got to go and find another person, contact staffing company, let's get something out there. Put your dollars for something that you're excited about rather than something that you're dreading, right? Today's episode is sponsored by OpenPhone. It's the perfect business phone system for contractors that you can manage just from your cell phone. If you're interested in hearing more about OpenPhone, check out the show notes to get an offer directly from them. The link is right here, and you'll find it down the show notes. Thanks for checking out today's episode, brought to you by OpenPhone.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cashflow Contractor.
Carrie, I don't get to have my co-host here to ramble on at the beginning, but maybe we can do that a little bit here. How are you this morning?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm so sorry that Martin couldn't be with us today.
No, it's okay. Round 2, though. We
That's right.
we have a great episode together that I think was in October, and we'll link to that in the show notes. And really, I think it kind of applies to what we're talking about today, but it's really kind of that deeper look at how you should be approaching your talent and getting the best talent, retaining the best talent, and the systems you need. And it's not necessarily something that you can just like do in an hour, or it's definitely at a higher level. But you did a great job of kind of outlining the ATS and how you can look at salary surveys and what your recruiting process should be, technology. But that's not really the point of this today. Our goal today, what we're promising to listeners is, hey, here's some ideas that you could actually do right now and ready to go tomorrow is kind of our goal, right?
Absolutely. We know that so many contractors are looking to hire. Over 90% of contractors look to hire over the next year. But wouldn't it be great if you weren't having to backfill? Those were net new hires. And how do you keep those folks that you work so hard to recruit and train and put so much into? So how do you keep?
Yeah. Well, and so before we jump in, we've got 6 things, and there's really more than 6, but 6 areas that we're going to focus on in terms of retention strategies that you can do today. But let's maybe revisit why it matters. So why do people actually need to just keep the people they already have rather than dealing with turnover and getting the next person?
Oh, I mean, really, there's so many costs associated with replacing individuals. There's direct costs, hard costs that go into losing someone, that work not being productive for a certain amount of time, and all the time that it takes. And then there's those indirect costs. And that can really be hard to overcome because they're not always measurable, and they can impact your overall business.
Yeah, 100%. So some of those direct costs, I mean, you're going to have to run ads on Indeed to get the new person. You're going to have to worry about paying a recruiter potentially to get the new person. You're going to have to deal with the missed labor on the job that you have right now, right? But there's also the hidden costs of project delays and dealing with, the time and energy you're spending on something like hiring, or someone in your team spending on hiring when they could have been doing something else to move the company forward in a different manner. Any, I know there's probably several costs I'm missing. Any that
And
come to the top of your head?
Yeah, the one thing that really comes to mind is that knowledge that's walking out of the door, that
Mm,
understanding of the business, understanding of the objectives of the project, maybe historical knowledge of what's worked well in the past. All that's walking out the door with that individual. And so and some of that can be captured with documentation, but in processes, but that's the invaluable thing that can really leave is their understanding and their knowledge about the company and the business and what's worked well.
yeah. And I know there's so many, majority, I would say 99% of the people that are listening to this right now don't have a formal training and onboarding program that's robust enough to capture all that knowledge and actually give it to that next employee within 30 days. It's okay, go follow around Mike on the job, go from project to project. It takes 6 months to get ramped up typically into how we do things as a team. So you're really dealing with a lot of time there. I think also something to think about for a lot of these companies, they do have a key person and probably multiple key people that if they did walk out the door, they're trying to find a unicorn in terms of replacing him because they wore so many different hats. And so you really can't afford to lose those people. I think something that we should say in terms of, actually keeping people, one, I think the biggest objection that we'll get from some people in our audience is, well, they're asking too much, or they only care about money. And that's not true. They don't only care about money. Sure, maybe they're asking too much, but what you probably need to do is evaluate the market. Like if you were in their position and you're looking for a job, what's actually out there, right? Yeah, I don't know what are you seeing
No,
in that
absolutely.
regard?
What's the total compensation? There's a number on a
Mm,
piece of paper that comes across in your paycheck, but there's also what are the benefits?
yeah,
What's the title that they're able to go towards, if that's a goal of theirs? What are the medical benefits? What are the employee company shares that they have or profit sharing that they're able to obtain? But also the culture. People don't want to leave where they really feel valued. And so being able to make sure that they understand how important they are to the overall objectives of the company, where they fit in, and how that is something that both they get something from as well as the company gets something from. So being able to look at that total package, not just a number.
yeah, absolutely. So a lot of things that we're going to be talking about are not these big motions that take a ton of time, but also they're going to be focused on building connections with your team and your brand. So there are things that you can absolutely go and implement right now, but they're not going to be complete substitutes or substitutes at all, really, for a really good salary that you're paying market wages, for having proper equipment and tools, things like that, for having a really good onboarding process and a good first impression for the new candidates that come your way and for the team that's there when they start. These aren't, and then benefits, like you mentioned as well. These aren't replacements for those things. You need to work on those things. Those matter, but some of those things take time, and it's not something that you can just say, okay, we're going to start this tomorrow. So all these things that we're going to jump into are things that you can do right now. So let's jump in. So first one that we talked about ahead of time was the morning huddle. We had Chad Prinky on recently. He has a podcast called The Morning Huddle. And that's one of the first things that he says companies need to implement right away. I think a great morning huddle is not necessarily your entire staff of 25 people. It's just your crews. Each crew has a leader, and that crew lead is the one that's running the morning huddle. So I think something that you were talking about is having an emphasis on mission and values. Why do you feel like mission and values are so important to address with your team and really have at the front of everything you do?
So good to have that kind reminder of why are we here and what are we doing? A company might have a handful of different values that it has posted on the wall in the main office. But what is it that the crew is trying to accomplish today that you can really emphasize one of those values? Talk about what you did yesterday and what you plan on doing today and how it ties to those values. So if it's really embedded within the culture, it shouldn't be that hard to really be able to kind of highlight a value. It might be a quick high five on someone that really exemplified one of those values yesterday, and giving them a celebration and a shout out in front of their peers can be really great.
Yeah.
And really making it concentrated to a small group really helps to feel a sense of accomplishment for the entire group so that they can cheer one another on together and it not be distilled by other groups that are focused on other things.
Yeah. I mean, people want to be recognized, right?
Mhm.
Like when I do the dishes at home and clean up around the house, I want to be recognized, right? Same thing happens with our employees. Like they want to be recognized for the work that they're doing. And when I'm, on a team and I recognize and I see that someone else is being recognized for something good, it makes me want to live up to that standard too.
Right.
So I think there's usually not enough recognition. It's really easy as the owner of a construction company or even a high level manager to just get bogged down with everything going on. You're worried about budgets. You're worried about what's going on each project and delays, and all these things are going on, and so it's really miss a lot of the recognition our recognition opportunities that go by you every single day. So
Right.
just rather than waiting on the trigger to be, oh, I saw that and I'm going to recognize it. It's really, if you can have that morning huddle where it's a dedicated time, 15, 20 minutes every single morning, and you show up and okay, one of the things I have to do today is recognize an employee. What's something I've seen? Hey, have you seen, what do you think about Juan over here? What has he done today or this week that should be recognized? Oh, that's awesome. During the huddle, will you point that out? Hey, I wanted John here to make sure that he recognizes one day he had something to share. Why don't you share that during the huddle? So by having a rhythm of that morning huddle that's
Yes.
dedicated to the recognition opportunity is great. And it's always good if you can tie the recognition, not just something great they did, but how it applies to your values as a company. And, that reinforces it a lot better. Obviously to do some of this stuff, it's really good to have your values outlined if you don't have those already. And if your values aren't, we have several episodes about this, but if your values aren't very actionable and they're very abstract, like integrity, which is fine, it means something, but it's really, I mean, like, why not just be real? Or why
Absolutely.
not do the right thing, right? So that's a lot easier to understand. It's words that we use every day. That's going to be much more actionable for your team.
Absolutely. And taking some of
Yeah.
those highlights from the morning huddle, and maybe the leader on that job site is reporting that back to HR so that maybe
Yeah.
those could be brought forward in a larger company setting as a recognition of something out of the ordinary and really elevate that recognition.
Yeah. And I think the last point I'll have on this morning huddle is just like it's so important to start off the new hire in the right manner and have the great onboarding process and the first impression, your morning huddle is your first impression for the day.
Yeah.
Rather than just showing up to the job site, this person's late, that person's going on. Hey, we don't start until everyone's here on time. We have our morning huddle and we set the tone for the day. We set the direction for what we're focused on, what we're trying to accomplish. And we've covered the employee retention aspect of doing some recognition, sharing a value highlight, restating our mission and direction. But also, hey, what are we going to finish on this project day? What is the objective? You get to set all of that out as well, which not only will help your project move forward correctly, it gets everyone on the same page and it helps them to be clear on what they're doing. I think one of the biggest reasons people leave a job is unclear expectations. So having that morning huddle can set those expectations really clearly. So I think that's a huge out. And if you're not doing a morning huddle with your teams, this is probably the most valuable one of the ones that we're going to give that you can do right now.
Absolutely. And what I love about it too is it can be done in the field. It can be done in the office. I have an 8 a.m. meeting every day. We're all
Yeah.
remote employees. It's about what was significant yesterday, what's significant today, and what I'm focused on. And we have a better sense of what each person is, their priorities are for the day, so that we can help support one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to the next one.
Yep.
And this one, as we go through, really honestly, the rest of these maybe, it can be thought I can see a lot of contractors think that's just going to be another time suck and a waste of maybe even some overhead expenses. But the reality is, if you don't retain the employee, you're looking at overhead expenses. You're looking at paying a recruiter. You're looking at, posting at job ads. You're looking at, wasting time on training.
So much
Right.
time.
So do you want to have the higher overhead expense later on, or do you want to have some smaller ones up front? So implementing a one-on-one cadence for you and your team. This can be very similar to the morning huddle in terms of the crew leader does one-on-ones. And I think this can be seen as a waste of time, but don't set the expectations too high. You're not doing an hourly one-on-one with each person on the crew every single week. It doesn't have to be that. One-on-ones can be 15 minutes. They can be once a month. They can be every other week. I think that has to probably be inside of that month range. If you start doing it quarterly, it becomes like, well, what are we doing? It has to be regular enough that it's like a rhythm. But I think I do this with my employees. I'm not a construction company, but the way that I approach one-on-ones is, hey, this is your time as the person I manage, right? This is your time to approach me with anything you want to talk about, personal, professional, whatever it is. And if we need to discuss something that's on the job, if there's a challenge going on, fine, that's great. Let's do that. But ideally, that's not how we approach it all the time. I actually want to hear about what's going on with you. What are your goals? What are your ambitions? What's something you're struggling with? Where do you see things going? What are you interested in about the company? What are you interested about the next project? How can we help you get more integrated and build a deeper connection with not only me, but with our company? Yeah, that's my approach to it. What do you think?
No, I love what you're saying. And I think it's important to note that the manager doesn't have to be the one setting the agenda. It can be the employee that's coming to the meeting with saying, this is what I would like to talk about. You could have guidelines, kind of a general idea. What are the challenges that you're facing? What did you learn recently? But really things that are looking forward. So this isn't a performance review. This isn't to hammer down on certain things. Those should be taken care of in a very particular cadence based on how severe they are, obviously. This is a time to really level set again about what's the next step. What are some things that I can help you with? And it really is up to the employee to come with what they want to talk about. I know I keep a running list of things that I know I'm going to talk about in my one-on-one. My leader is very busy on a day-to-day basis and has different priorities. So to me as an employee, it's important that I'm kind of keeping that list of these are the things that I need clarity on, but I don't necessarily need to interrupt and go and take time off of what I'm doing or what they're doing in order to get that clarified. So I think it's also from a retention standpoint, it gives some power to the employee to be able to say, I have this time that I can talk about something that is really important to me. And that gives that notion of being heard. I mean, how many of us in both our personal and professional life, it's important to be heard. And so giving that space and giving that cadence is important for retention.
Yeah. And really all you're doing is coaching. I think you just got to show up. That's the goal of it. It's not another thing to add to your plate that you've got to plan for and all this stuff. Just show up, right? And don't set the expectations for the meeting to be something that you're not going to be able to attain, right? Just make it something that's, hey, this is an opportunity for us to talk. And again, it's that recognition piece as well. You get to recognize, instead of in the team setting, you can recognize on a personal, hey, I've been seeing you really put some work in to get things organized on the truck. And I just want to let you know, like, your truck is looking better than anybody else's right now. Like, if I had to drive the truck, I would know where to find what. And I can't say that for everybody else. So I really appreciate you doing that. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I noticed that you've shown up on time. I know that you got to drop your kids off at school every morning, but you've been doing a great job of showing up on time. I know how hard that is to get the kids up, to get them dressed, to get them fed, to get them out the door. I appreciate how much you do to make this job a priority for us. And that means a lot,
Yeah.
right?
And
Those
putting
things
that
go so far.
so far, and it's just an extra 15 or 20 minutes that help with
Yeah.
that retention. You're also able
Yeah.
to kind of check in to say, are they starting to distance themselves? Is this a high performer that could possibly be looking to take a step in a different direction? So how can
Yeah.
you kind of tune into that a little bit earlier on, perhaps, so that you can take some action to make sure that doesn't.
Yeah. It's great to gather ideas as well. I mean, so many of the improvements that we can make in our company are at the ground level of being in
100%.
the trenches. And when we're not in the trenches, we're not having the ideas about improvement on the small things. So yeah, really cool. So implementing one-on-ones, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It's, hey guys, just want to let you know, we're going to start doing one-on-ones every week. It's 20 minutes. I'll meet after our morning huddle, or, at the end of the day, one of you will come by, you'll drop by the office, we'll meet, whatever it is. We're going to do these one-on-ones. So that's a really easy rhythm that you can implement. Quick ad break to tell you about Growth Kits. This is actually my company, and you may have seen it around, but I started Growth Kits because I kept seeing contractors struggle with the same problems over and over again. They were trying to be better organized inside of their business, but kept drowning in the day-to-day operations. So whether you need a better CRM, a hiring process that actually works, or you just want to make sense of the tech stack inside of your business, we have systems that are built specifically for contractors. You can either grab our DIY guides and implement these systems yourself, or you can hire us to work with you on it and implement it for you. No massive consulting fees, no year-long commitments or monthly retainers. Just pick what you need right now and let's get it done together. Head over to growth-kits.com to see how we can help you construct your success one system at a time. That's growth-kits.com, or just click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show. Let's talk about employee gatherings. Why do employee gatherings matter from a retention standpoint?
So employee gatherings can come in lots of different shapes and sizes, but they really help to build a culture. We know from our recent AGC workforce survey that Arcoro sponsored that only about 52% of contractors consider themselves to have an established culture that their employees could really hold up and say, this is our employee culture. So we really want to make sure that other 48% are able to articulate, are able to show that vibe of their company culture. And different types of employee gatherings are a really great way to do that. But I think what we really want to emphasize with this point in retention is that having an intentional strategy around your employee gatherings. And there's so much varied ideas and ways you can do that, but they can come to fruition organically. But how can you develop a strategy around employee gatherings to really make them effective for retention?
Yeah, I think this one can be how I see this one is people are like, yeah, we should do that, but then they never really put it on the calendar.
Good
And
point.
so just figuring out a way to have a really clear, get it on the calendar, but also clear triggers for like, okay, this is going to happen now, right? So one that we've talked about is an end of project celebration. If you're doing, larger projects that take weeks, months to finish, whenever a project's finished, you can have one of the things on your checklist be, okay, schedule employee lunch or breakfast at the office for finishing this project, right? That's a great one. I think another thing that you can do is do some sort of celebration around the seasons. So for example, it's summer, we're renting out the community pool and we're going to cook hot dogs for the family of our employees. So everybody can come, the kids can come, they can swim, and we'll provide all the food. And it's a fun thing that we do on a Saturday. And then whenever it's fall, maybe we do a back to school thing where we let the kids, pick out backpacks or whatever it is for going back to school. And then when it's winter, we do some sort of holiday party, right?
Absolutely.
Something that you can schedule out and it's just on the calendar. You can give someone the responsibility of, hey, you get to plan this to really celebrate our team and to, make their families feel involved. Um, it's really, yes, that's an overhead expense. I get it. But wouldn't you rather put money towards celebrating your employees than, crap, we got to go and find another person, contact staffing company, let's get something out there. Like, you put your dollars for something that you're excited about rather than something that you're dreading, right? This is going to
Absolutely.
make your team feel much more connected to your brand. And also something that I've heard before, and I think it's such a good point. Your stakeholder that you're trying to retain is not necessarily, you don't have to worry about the employee as much as you have to worry about the spouse of the employee, because the spouse is the one that is spending more time at home because you've got to do overtime on this project. They're the one that's dealing with the brunt of it. So if you can win over the spouse, then you have a better chance of retaining the employee, right? So that's another way to think about some of these family things that you can do. Another way to celebrate people is to, we haven't really talked about this, but giving people the option to a date night or, like, hey,
Yeah.
we want to pay for your
I
date
love
night
that.
tonight or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah. A
What are,
great way to,
what are some of the
yeah.
other gatherings that people can do?
Well, I think, having something fun that gives an initiative. I've seen some groups, they might over the holidays have gingerbread houses and as builders, and you have great gingerbread house competitions. And it may
Oh,
only be
nice.
15 or 20 minutes, but it's part of a larger event. And how fun is it to try to see which crew, which group is really building a gingerbread house faster than the other? And which one can stay stable if you put it on a shake table or something like that. Some sort of trivia night, something fun. It could be
Hmm.
fun, quirky trivia. It could be pop culture, but just something to gather people together and laugh and have a good time and be able to showcase some of their talents. Also community service. I know a lot of our communities will have a community service day, whether that be United Way or Habitat for Humanity Build. But being able to do a community service project that is something that's
Yeah.
giving back, lending your company's skill sets, possibly supplies, things that might help to build your community. But of all these different employee gatherings, I have to say, because we've had a great podcast on hiring, take pictures. Give that assignment to someone at the company to make sure they are taking pictures at all these employee gatherings and put them on your career page on your website or in your
Yeah.
social media. That is a great way to showcase your company and your employee culture. And it's not just a job site picture or a project picture, but those are the things that help with with hiring as well as retention, is having that articulation of looking how the company operates from the inside and being able to see those fun events, and those help with hiring.
Yeah, absolutely. This just reminded me, it's kind of employee gathering, not really, but I know a company here in Oklahoma City that sponsors the indoor soccer team for some of their employees, and they pay for the entry fee, so that all the employees get to play for free essentially,
That's
and
so
they
cool.
also pay for their jersey and put the logo on it, and so
Oh,
the
yeah.
team name is the company name. And then I think around one game a season, they invite all of the company to go watch and celebrate and whatever at the indoor
Uh-huh.
soccer arena. But that's an easy way to,
Easy.
build some affiliation, do some marketing, I guess. You can jot that down as a marketing expense for the team jerseys.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's an easy way to also invest in some of your team outside of work and show some affiliation. Um,
Absolutely. Take those pictures.
yes, take
Like,
pictures. They won.
professional, they can be iPhone photos, but
Yeah,
use it to your advantage for additional purposes, for sure.
yeah,
I've seen companies do something very similar for their local association that they belong to, either their
yeah.
APC or AGC chapter, might have a golf tournament or might have a kickball tournament or a fishing tournament.
Okay.
And very similar, you want to show that company pride with branded t-shirts or different things like that.
Yeah. So another one that I think is really missed in construction, we've been helping a lot of people with this in the last few months, is a workplace communication tool. This is, it's not super easy to implement, but it's much easier than you think. You can definitely do it in a day. And so this is something like Slack or Google Chat. There's a variety of other tools. What I typically see people doing is these one-on-one text messages, that's fine. You're communicating. But whenever you have like a company workplace where everyone's communicating in the same space, you get more connection points. And it's not only going to help with project management and clear understanding of where to look for what, but it's really going to bring a little bit more camaraderie and a team aspect to what you're doing, because you're able to, send messages that are going out to everybody that everybody can see and post photos and give reactions. And there's just a lot more that can happen. And if you make that the standard of, hey, from now on, we're implemented in Slack. I'm not answering text messages. I only respond inside of Slack. I'm not making phone calls unless it's absolute emergency, like someone just fell off of something. Like otherwise it's going inside of Slack. And what you'll see is you'll get a lot more involvement inside of the channels rather than in these one-to-one messages that are happening. And it'll give you a better pulse of what's going on. I think that's a great way to start in getting more connection with the brand and your employees, which will eventually lead to more retention because you have more connection points.
100%. And I think those individuals that maybe haven't had Slack or Microsoft Teams as part of their organizations in the past, it's hard to see how that would become something that would help with employee retention. But I've been in organizations where they have a happy birthday channel or some sort of fun channel. And so what's great about Slack and Microsoft Teams and others is that you have these channels, which are basically like text groups, if you will. And they're kind of themed. It may be a project channel. It may be something specific for a group, but you can also have fun channels. And so that might be the shout out channel where employees can say, hey, this individual really helped me. Thank you. It could be the anniversaries and birthday channels. And someone can be in charge of, shouting out to individuals and sending them a funny cat meme on their birthday. But those are those things that help to develop camaraderie and don't take much time, very little investment. So definitely having some communication tool that's easily accessible on a mobile device, also a desktop, so that each person can participate pretty easily can help with that retention for sure.
Yeah, I think what a mistake that I see a lot of times with a tool like Teams or Slack is that they overutilize direct messages instead of using the channels. And so that if you're just going to do the direct messages, you might as well just text someone. But if you're doing it in the channels, everybody can see it. And I've seen there's improvements beyond just retention. It gives visibility to everybody. And so when you ask, hey guys, where's the ladder? Instead of trying to message just one person who's then like, I don't know, let me ask so-and-so, or let me call him or her. No, it's in the channel. And then you have much more opportunities for someone to respond to you. Right. And so being active in the channels is very important in having a group communication setting versus you just sending one-on-one messages. Sure, there's a place for direct messages, but majority, 90% of that communication should happen in the channel. So that's a big one, really one that you can implement right away. Obviously, it's a habit change for everybody, but it's as simple as having the directive of, hey, we're not responding to text messages and phone calls anymore. If you want to get a hold of us, you've got to use the channels. And then you've got to be an example and only use the channels. So I think that's a really great option for a lot of teams that can improve not just retention because people are inactive and being able to be heard more, but also it can improve a lot of other aspects of your company.
Absolutely.
Quick ad break to talk to you about OpenPhone. And rather than talk to you about OpenPhone, I thought I'd share a real testimonial from a client, Sergio, on using OpenPhone. It was literally the first phone call that I had with him while he was on OpenPhone. I was driving. I believe he was running around on his phone. It sounds crystal clear because of how OpenPhone makes your background noise really diluted and really just focuses on your voice, which is a plus if you're on a job site. But you're going to hear the recording that we have from OpenPhone. So what you're listening to is actually what we've pulled out of OpenPhone for you to listen to. So let's take a look.
Hey, what's up, brother?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Same old, man. Enjoying life.
Enjoying life. Good, man. I'm glad to hear that.
Super happy
Yeah,
with
man,
my
I got to
new
sit across
open
from.
phone.
Oh, is this open phone?
Yeah, this is open phone. This is crazy.
Okay, so it still rang to your phone?
No, now everything is through open phone.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, are you talking on your phone or on your computer?
No, on my phone. This is my phone.
Okay, so you have a new number now? Did you get a personal line? Like,
Oh,
for
yeah,
just
yeah.
your personal stuff?
Yeah, this is it. This one is my personal line. It's just the phone number.
The app is on your new
The
phone.
app knows my, yeah. Because I didn't want to have two different phones. No, that was annoying.
Yeah.
So I just have the open phone app. But it's pretty cool that I can just turn it off, go home, and this is my, like, all my messages and everything on this one is my personal stuff. I told Vicky this morning, that was one of my dreams. I never, like, I know my dreams are really low, but I told Vicky, that was one of my dreams, like having this phone to become part of the company, to become, be attached from that. And it is happening, man. I'm so happy with this, man. It's so crazy.
Good. Well, I'm glad it's helping. That's the goal, right?
Yep.
So as you can see there, Sergio's really stoked on open phone. He'd just been using it for a couple of days before then. Just a little background. Before that, for 15 years, his personal line was the business phone. And it was keeping him from being able to actually do work on the business because he was always getting pulled away by text messages and voicemails and phone calls that were in the business. So we moved his personal line from Verizon to open phone. We got him a new personal line with Verizon. And on that phone, he has the open phone app. He's able to receive those calls just like any other call on his phone, but he can turn it off. He can set himself away. And he mentioned Vicky in there, that's his assistant. She now has access through open phone to his account and can receive those calls and text messages on his behalf for him. She can also review them. She can triage them and help him to see only what's important, not every little thing that comes through, especially when there's so much spam coming through these days. So if you're interested in open phone, that's a real life use case, a real conversation from a real contractor who is using open phone as their business phone system to help them have less stress, more time, and more money, which we're all about at the Cashflow Contractor. So thanks, open phone. Back to the episode. So not everybody has a break room. A lot of people are just starting on job sites. But some teams are going to have that shop. They're going to have some sort of break room. And I think this is a really great opportunity, is to have some sort of break room strategy of how to get people into the break room. Obviously there's things like coffee and donuts, but you can spread that out. You can do things like, hey, end of the month, we do lunch in the break room, right? And it brings everybody to there. You can have birthday celebrations. You can have end of project celebrations like we mentioned earlier. But how can they also do that in the field?
Yeah. I mean, that can be difficult, but it just has to be intentional. So making sure that you're picking the right point in the project when it makes sense, that everyone might be more centralized across the job site, making it so that it's safe for everyone, that you have a place, maybe it's the job site trailer or something that you could do that for. But maybe it's bringing lunch in, catering in lunch, or, ordering mini sandwiches so that everyone can be there at one time. But I think when it comes down to it, it's being intentional, making sure that the leaders on those job sites know that they have a discretionary budget to be able to say, this is how often I can do this, and this is kind of what the main cost is, or they have support and another part of the organization that's going to handle that for them. But that it's part of the way projects are done. Just like you said about putting that project celebration on the checklist for each project, it's about putting those break room or pseudo break rooms in the job site as part of that cadence.
Yeah, it could be a great checklist item to have in a tool to equip your managers and crew leads. Hey, every project you do, you've got to have coffee and donuts at least twice at the job site. And you've got to have lunch at least once throughout the life cycle of the project. And here's your budget. And that's something that they've got to make sure they do. It's on their checklist, right? I think that's a great way to do it. And getting it, those large gatherings are probably a little bit easier to get everybody together. But having that central location, if you can do it, allows for the water cooler talk, if you will, or the interactions that wouldn't normally happen because, hey guys, come by the break room. We made cookies. Whenever you get a chance to come by and grab a cookie, they're really delicious. My wife made them, you'll enjoy them, whatever it is, right? Those are great ways to do it.
Absolutely. And I think
Okay.
those are the little interactions that lead to retention. You're able to key into those individuals that might be distancing themselves some. It's a great way to get everyone together just to share. Oh, I just learned this. We talked about knowledge sharing being one of those really impactful hidden costs of employees leaving. So putting those situations together so that people gather and, like you said, water cooler talk is when a lot of that sharing can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So last one we've got here for retention strategies. Again, overhead expense, but much better to do it up front rather than having to deal with the other overhead expenses that are much more costly. So tool or apparel allowance. So essentially you can have different milestones for different employees, and based upon the milestone, 6 months or 2 years or whatever it is, you can have different allowances or different awards, whatever you want to call it. So this can be, a new tool that they can use on the job site. Maybe it's a new piece of equipment, a better hand tool that they need, maybe tool belt. But then it can also be PPE. It could be branded apparel like a jacket for the cold weather in the winter. It could be, new shirts that are branded. It can be even something that isn't necessarily related to the job site apparel wise, but it's got your company branding on it. So that gives them, if they're wearing that in their personal life, it's kind of an identity piece. Yeah, I work for this company, right? Gives a bigger connection to your brand.
Absolutely. And I think from a retention standpoint, it's quick and easy to do. It does take some time and, getting the items all put together. But advertising within your employee base, this is part of a perk. We have this tool and apparel allowance. That is a retention tool. Somebody that may be very new in their career with you saying, oh, I've got to make it to that milestone so that I can participate in the tool and apparel allowance. It's kind of reminds me of the old school catalog corporate would get, and say you have so many points picked from this catalog. But what I love about it is it helps for brand identity. It helps for employee pride and wearing something branded for their company. But it also helps, and these are some of those added benefits that help me differentiate from maybe the contractor next door that I might be considered going to. But this is really something that I enjoy because I know I'm going to get that new tool coming up with my allowance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really easy one. It doesn't have to be that hard. Go find a print shop. Tell them, hey, I need a bunch of hats, and then I need 4 jackets with, embroidered. And then the 4 employees that are most tenured, you give those jackets, you give hats to everybody. Hey, Jesse over here is scheduled to get his jacket in 2 months. Everybody who hits the 1-year mark is going to get a jacket, right? That's kind of what happens around here. So it can be a point of pride for these people to have that, to be able to earn that jacket, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe, and don't have to tie it to tenure. You can tie it to performance metrics if you want, right? If it's a certain amount of days without an accident or whatever you determine the metric is, that can be the trigger to order that new jacket or piece of equipment or whatever it is. So
absolutely.
I'm going to run through really.
Oh, please. I was just going to say, then you say you're at an industry event or something else, and someone's like, hey, I really like that vest you have on. Yeah, we got this when we completed that big project, or I got this at my, 1-year anniversary, or I got this because I was recognized as one of the top performers. It's something that is a conversation piece as well.
Right. Yeah. So I'll walk through really quick all 6 things again with a clear action for each. So morning huddle, just put it on the calendar, get on the schedule. 8:15, we start our morning huddle. 7:30, we start our morning huddle. It's 15 minutes. Get in and make a quick agenda and just start doing it. 2, implement one-on-ones. Get on your calendar. Okay, I've got 4 people on my crew. I'm going to have one-on-ones. Maybe you can do 1 each day. Maybe you knock them all out on Monday or Tuesday, but figure out a way to do one-on-ones, 10 to 20 minutes max. Tell your team, hey, you're in charge of the agenda. You've got 20 minutes of my time to talk about whatever you want. and then just be ready to show up and ask some questions, right? Employee gatherings, schedule one gathering. I don't know what it is. We're sitting here in January. Maybe you do something for spring. Maybe you schedule a community service event with the charity that's down the road from you. Figure out what it is and just schedule it. Just get something on the calendar and then talk to your team about it. For a workplace communication tool, maybe you already have one. Maybe you're not using it as well as you should. Sit down and outline, here's how I want this to be used, and then give a directive to your team to do that. If you don't have one, download one. There's plenty that are for free, but go and just try to get something incorporated that you'll actually use, and you can do it today. Break room strategy, or if it's out in the field as well, put a budget for it, for getting donuts and coffee, for getting lunch occasionally, or get it scheduled together for birthdays and a budget for the cake, and just get something together and do it. Doesn't have to be something that is perfectly outlined, just do something now. And then lastly, the tool or apparel allowance, figure out what it is, call the print shop, call your supplier, tell them what you want to do, say, hey, can you make this happen? And then just start with something as basic as hats, right? Get something together and then think about, hey, ask the team, hey, what would you guys want for having a year tenure here or 2-year tenures here? What would be the apparel that you would like to have? And then do it, right? But these are all really simple, small things that you can do for retention to help build more connections between your brand and your team. No, it does not replace having an adequate salary for your guys or the people on your team, guys and girls, but it's some small things that you can do along the way to really help them. Carrie, thank you so much for joining us. You've been on before, return guest. Thanks for coming back. You're with Arcoro HR software for construction companies. Maybe give us the short 30 seconds of why they might want to use Arcoro.
Excellent. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be back. Arcoro is HR software specific for construction. We're modular based, so we have modules that help with that employee lifecycle, everything from hire, manage them, and grow them. And so what we're really focused on today is retention strategies. And there's definitely technologies to help with retention strategies. But really, we are a software solution that helps to grow with the needs of the business, whether that be a small contractor all the way up to a very large contractor, but helping them to take away some of those manual processes that they're dealing with for their HR functions and their people functions, helping to use technology to manage those so that they can work on these things like we talked about today, those retention strategies, and working on the business rather than in the business.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. We'll link to Arcoro in the show notes.
Thank you.
We'll also put your contact info in there for people to reach out to you. But thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory. It's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're gonna love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. We'd love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show And thank you again for checking out the Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.